Hello, friends, we have a song for you. It's CU Sports Mag this afternoon.
I'm Aaron Sullivan, he is Joe Paris, and this is gonna be quite a show.
We'll tell you how many picks Cepho had against UCLA.
And how awesome our cross-country team is.
Lock in the remote, it's the place to be.
For the next 30 minutes, get to watch me.
And me. CU Sports Mag starts now.
Hey there, Buff fans. We're happy to have you tuned in for this week's edition of Sports Mag. I'm here with the fresh face on the desk, Aaron Sullivan.
Thanks, Joe. Last week was a big one for CU, so we've got an exciting show ahead of ourselves.
We sure do, Aaron. Let's get right into it. CU football's team took on UCLA this Saturday on the Bruins' home turf. In the first half, CU ran 61 plays over UCLA's 21, but the Bruins still led 21-6.
Although, when the second half came around, the Buffs knew it was really time to rally. CU dominated in possession, while the defense on the field for 55 more snaps.
By the beginning of the fourth quarter, Colorado was in the lead 31-28. Patrick Carr scored from 6 yards out, followed by a 2-point conversion, and Nelson Spruce became the Pac-12's career reception leader with 11 catches for 90 yards on the day. Although Paul Perkins had 2 touchdown runs, one of which was an 82-yard run, the Buffs did a good job to keep the game tight.
UCLA came back quick with a 2-yard touchdown run by Soso Jambo in the remaining 8 minutes of the game. Donovan Lee was able to break through UCLA's defense, but not enough to keep possession. With 51 seconds remaining, UCLA intercepted a pass by Cepho Lufau and kept the lead to win the brawl 35-31.
The Buffs will take on the number 11 ranked Stanford Cardinal at 11 a.m. Saturday. I'll be in attendance with my father, who hasn't seen a Buffs home victory since he went to school here in the 1980s. Hopefully the Buffs will change that, just to impress my dad.
A Buffs win over Stanford should be huge, but what do the Buffs need to have even have a shot? Well, for starters, Colorado will need to play a sound defense and contain former Colorado high school star and Heisman candidate Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey already has over 1,000 yards on the year and is considered to be the top running back in all of college football.
Make sure to catch the game on the Pac-12 networks at 11 a.m. It's breakfast with the Buffs, or lunch, or brunch, or don't eat it all during the game. Whatever makes you happy. Following the loss to UCLA, Coach Mack continued to stay positive and had this to say during Tuesday's press conference.
They're very powerful. We'll have to stay on our blocks. We'll have to our running backs have to hit the hole and slice through some arm tackles, that type of thing, to be able to run the football. But hopefully we'll be able to sustain on our blocks long enough that our running backs can get going, sustain on our blocks long enough that we can throw the ball downfield.
They may have a tree, but we have a forest. Look out, Stanford, because our own Forrest Cobble is in the studio with a hatchet of knowledge. A hatchet of knowledge. Breaking down Colorado football in this week's edition of Buff Banner.
And this is Buff Banner. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the latest trends in Colorado football, so let's get started. Last week, the Buffs rolled into Pasadena to play UCLA after pulling out an important Pac-12 victory against Oregon State. As you know, the Buffs lost to the Bruins, but I'm a positive guy, so I'm going to focus first on what went well. There's no doubt that the Buffs looked fearsome down the stretch on Saturday, at one point overcoming a 15-point deficit to take the lead. CU dominated the home team statistically, holding the ball for more than 40 minutes of game time and racking up 554 yards. My point, all cylinders were firing on offense. The story once again, however, was that the Buffs failed to make plays when they counted. Colorado was forced to attempt 4 field goals from within the UCLA 30, 3 of which came from inside the red zone. And with a chance to win it down the stretch, Cepho Lufau threw a fate-sealing interception at the 50-yard line to end the game. The moral of the story is that clutch play wins games, and the Buffs didn't have that. But it's encouraging to see that they at least flash the talent they need to play in a bowl game. Going into this week against Stanford, they're going to have to capitalize on all the chances they get. The Cardinal is ranked 11th in the country and is riding a 7-game winning streak into the contest on Saturday. Their offense is led by former Coloradan Christian McCaffrey, who has put up historical numbers this year. Not only does the star running back lead his team in rushing yards, but also in receiving yards, and is making a compelling case for the Heisman this year. The Buffs have allowed the most rushing yards in the Pac-12 this year, so they're going to have to be clicking on offense to win what will likely be a shootout. Well, looks like that's all the time I have for this week's edition of Buff Banter. I'm Forrest Cobble, and excited to say back to you guys at the desk.
This past Tuesday, ESPN Films released their newest 30 for 30 documentary that tells the odd yet very interesting story of Bill McCartney, the coach of Colorado football for 13 years, who led the team to become national champions back in 1990. The Gospel According to Mac covers how McCartney's founding of the Christian men's ministry, Promise Keepers, and his faith in God transitioned to his faith in his own team and his coaching tactics. To all of you Buff football fans out there, this is one you won't want to miss.
After the airing of the 30 for 30 productions, The Gospel According to Mac, the Buffs had decided to wear their traditional gold helmets, black jerseys, and gold pants for their game against Stanford. A large group of CU players gathered in the Champion Center auditorium to watch the debut showing, and Coach McIntyre tweeted on Tuesday, "Last night's hashtag 30 for 30 moved our players. They chose to change their uniform plan and honor the legacy with our traditional uniforms."
This Saturday, the University of Colorado is hosting a food and toy drive prior to the start of the football game with Stanford. The food drive will benefit Community Food Share and help fight hunger in Boulder and Broomfield counties. Any factory-sealed canned good is welcome. CU students will staff donation bins on the game day at the Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest gates, as well as in Ralphie's Corral. CU Alumni Association is also teaming up with the U.S. Marine Corps to collect toys for their Toys for Tots program at Ralphie's Corral at Stanford before the game.
On Saturday, the Buffs will be honoring those who have or are currently serving our country in the armed forces for Military Appreciation Day. During the Stanford game, there will be a swearing-in ceremony into the armed forces, and fans are welcome to donate a ticket to a veteran so they can attend the game.
Time for trivia. This one is for those of you who always choose the bison burger, and for those of you who don't eat meat to preserve this beautiful creature that is CU's mascot. Either way, a true Buff fan ought to know the answer to this question. When was the first National Bison Day? Stay tuned for the answer later in the show.
Coming up after the break, it is National Bison Day. How will you be celebrating?
Speaking of bison, also coming up after the break, Prati Paramar will be talking about the best bison there is, Ralphie.
It's a great day, isn't it?
Yeah. Too bad your boat's gonna sink at 11:05.
Don't come closer. I have rabies. Don't you wish there were warnings to protect you from life's risks? With diabetes, there is one. It's called A1C, a simple blood test that helps measure your risk of serious complications. Learn more at diabetesaA1c.org.
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool, really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately. Because time lost is brain lost.
This isn't where you want to be. Don't use a fake ID.
They said I would be more focused. They said I'd get better grades. It's nothing like they told me. not what you expected. Don't abuse prescription drugs.
This Saturday marks our nation's official Bison Day. This day was declared during a session of the 114th Congress and encourages citizens to recognize the historical, cultural, and economic significance of the North American bison to the heritage of the United States. On this day, the people of the United States are encouraged to observe appropriate ceremonies and activities. This new resolution is linked to a movement called Vote Bison, a coalition that includes CU Boulder pushing for bison to become the official national mammal of the United States and to officially make the first Saturday in November every year National Bison Day. This is exciting for Buffs fans considering that November 7th is also when we play Stanford.
This week, SportsMag's reporter Prachi Parmar roamed campus to talk with fellow students about CU's beloved Buffalo mascot, Ralphie.
Hey Buff fans, my name is Prachi Parmar and welcome to this week's edition of Man on the Street. In honor of the Senate declaring it being National Bison Day, we thought it'd be a good idea to see how much students know about our beloved mascot, Ralphie. Is Ralphie a male or a female?
She's a female.
I believe Ralphie is a female.
Ooh, female.
Ralphie is a female.
Female.
Female. Female. Do you know who the game was against when we ran Ralphie for the first time?
I have no idea.
Texas? Maybe CSU.
Nebraska?
Nebraska.
Oklahoma?
Nebraska.
Ooh, it was close. It's Oklahoma. How many Ralphies have there been in the history of CU?
5.
13.
7. 8.
We're on Ralphie number 5.
I'm gonna guess 5.
That's right. What is Ralphie's maximum speed? Is it 55?
35 miles per hour.
34 miles an hour.
40 miles an hour.
8 miles an hour.
30 miles an hour.
30 miles per hour.
That was actually close, 25 miles per hour. There you have it. That's how much CU students know about Ralphie. That's all the time we have. Don't forget to celebrate National Bison Day on November 7th. Back to you guys at the desk.
Last Friday, both the men's and women's cross-country teams won titles at the Pac-12 Championship in Colfax, Washington. This is the 5th straight year that the men have claimed this title and the 2nd time that both teams have swept the league at this meet since joining the Pac-12. The boys kept a strong pace and held the lead for the majority of the 8K race, taking an exceptional head over Stanford in the final 2K. Senior Pierce Murphy led the Stampede for the 3rd straight season, marking his highest Pac-12 finish. For the women, on the other hand, they had to work their way up throughout the race. The girls were behind, but eventually caught up and beat Oregon by a narrow 6 points in the final kilometer.
Cross-country coach Mark Wetmore was named Pac-12 Cross-Country Coach of the Century. Wetmore has led the Buffs to the Pac-12 championship in every year since the team entered the league 5 years ago. In his 21 years as head coach, Wetmore has guided the Buffs cross-country squad to 30 conference titles. Wetmore has guided the men's team to national 5 championships and the women's team to 2 titles. He's the only cross-country coach to win national championships in all 4 disciplines, men's and women's team, as well as men's and women's individual.
Both the men and the women's cross-country teams are raking in awards quicker than leaves can fall. Head coach Mark Wetmore has not only been named the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, but also the Pac-12 Coach of the Century. Wetmore led both teams to victorious titles last Friday, making this the 5th year he has received this honor on the men's side and the 2nd time on the women's side. The Pac-12 Male Freshman of the Year also went to CU's very own John Dressel, who finished 6th overall in his first season with the Buffs. 8 CU runners, 4 men and 4 women, were named the 2015 All-Pac-12 teams. This included Amar Musa, Pierce Murphy, and Connor Winter for the guys, and Caitlin Benner, Melanie Nunn, and Aaron Clark for the girls.
CU men's golf team ended their fall season on Wednesday with an 8th place finish in UCLA's 11th annual Gifford Collegiate Tournament. The Buffs shot a 15 over par to finish with a 25 over 877. The boys beat out Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Northwestern, 3 teams which were all ranked in the top 50. Head coach Red Edwards thought that the team fought hard and finished well despite windy conditions and very difficult hole locations. Senior Philip Juelberg tied for 8th with a 1 over 214 score and made the most birdies out of all the 81 men on the course that day.
The CU women's golf team has wrapped up their fall season with a 4th place finish in the Pac-12 preview. The girls played in Kona, Hawaii this Tuesday. They finished the tournament strong, moving up multiple spots on the leaderboard throughout the day. The girls shot 19 over par on the par 73 Nana Golf Club. Head coach Ann Kelly was incredibly satisfied and proud of the team effort that the girls put forth. Junior Esther Lee and sophomore Brittany Fan both scored 3 over par, tying for 12th place overall. The girls will return to the course on February 13th for their spring season at the Peg Barnard Invitational in Stanford, California.
CU women's soccer team will wrap up their season against Utah this Friday. This will conclude a tough season in which the Buffs own a 1-7-2 conference record and currently sit in last place in the Pac-12. This will also mark the final game for 7 CU seniors. The group has tallied a combined 223 starts over their career and accounted for 24 goals. It's no doubt that they have been an important part of the Buffs team over the years. They'll look to end their career on a high note against the Utes, and you can catch the game on the Pac-12 Network at 2 p.m.
Coming up on Sports Mag, we'll be giving you the latest shot on the upcoming season of women's basketball.
And you want to stay tuned to find out what this week's exclusive tweet of the week is.
Salt is to pepper as gregarious is to...
Oh, no, not more SAT questions.
In ancient Rome, salt was a form of currency. True or false?
False?
True.
Son, can you locate sodium?
Or chloride?
There are tons of ways to help with your kids' learning. Find the really good ones on connectforkids.org.
You have 3.5 grams of salt and a 5-gram slug. What's the rate of shrivel?
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Good nutrition can lead to great things. Find out how a healthy lifestyle can help your child succeed.
The volleyball team faced number 9 UCLA on Wednesday night. The Buffs tried to keep up with UCLA as they lost the first 2 sets by only 2 points. But in the third, they fell to UCLA 25-17. That ended that match. Redshirt sophomore Jocelyn Hayes had 9 kills, followed by Gabby Simpson, who recorded 8. Senior Nicole Edelman had 33 assists on the night, and the team as whole tallied 44 kills. With the loss of the Buffs, they are 14-11 and are facing number 2 Southern California tonight.
On Tuesday, the women's basketball team hosted their 5th annual one-on-one event with prominent female members of the university. Each player was matched up with faculty ranging from department directors, professors, and PhD candidates. Players and staff sat down to dinner to learn about each other after the games. Following the dinner, the faculty took time to talk about their player and ask them a question. The event was held in front of an audience of fans, ending with Coach Lappy thanking the campus leaders for all their support in the upcoming season.
Appreciate all you guys being here. And I feel extremely privileged to have gotten to know each of these presenters. Thank you guys for telling our players, telling these fans who our players are at a very deep level.
The women's basketball season is right around the corner, with their preseason opener scheduled for this weekend against USC Aiken. Senior forward Jamie Swan mentioned last week that the Buffs have been, quote, trying to get the team chemistry down before they get the starting 5 chemistry down. But as the game gets closer, Coach Lapp has been experimenting with player combinations in order to choose the starters. They will be revealed at Coors Event Center on Saturday at 7 p.m. What's better than one Buff fan? How about 2? Lauren Sorge and Alex Doyle paired up to give you double the lowdown on CU's upcoming basketball season with this week's edition of Double Team.
What's up, Buff fans? We're here for this week's edition of Double Team. I'm Alex Doyle.
And I'm Lauren Sorge, and tonight we're talking about men's basketball and women's basketball. So, Alex, what do you think is going to be the biggest strength to the men's basketball team this season?
There's a few. One of the big ones is that we have healthy big men. Josh Scott's healthy. Fortune's ready to play. But another big one's going to be the additions of Thomas Akizili and Keenan Guzanic coming over from Europe. They're very highly sought after by Coach Boyle and his coaching staff, and so they got them. So they're going to help too. And also, along with having healthy big men, that improves our front line, and our wings have also improved a little bit as well.
Yeah, what do you think the point situation is?
Coach Boyle is not ready to commit on one yet. Likely it's going to be Dom Collier, just based on how we played last year, and he would likely be the next follower for Askia Booker. But in order for that to happen, he needs to be a little bit more vocal leader on the floor. Mm-hmm. Right now, Coach Boyle's also thinking it could be Akizili or even Xavier Talton.
Wow. What do you think the feelings are going in the season?
I think it's cautious optimism. Last year's record wasn't super great, but they've improved this year. They're healthy again. So they're coming in optimistic, but they're not overly optimistic. Their first game is against number 7 ranked Iowa State on November 13th. And so they really just want to try to get back to the Pac-12 tournament, compete in that, and then find their way back into the NCAA tournament. But that's enough about the men. Let's talk about the women. So their first game is actually the day after the men's against Loyola Marymount.
Yeah, November 14th.
What's Coach Lappy's biggest goal for this year?
Well, as you know from last year's season, the women's defense was pretty weak. Lappy herself actually said that it was probably the weakest defense she's ever coached. So this year she has quite the strategy. It's to really focus on the defense and practices more so than the offense. Not to neglect the offense, but just, fill those holes and make sure they're being better with defense and putting points on the board.
So in order to do that, what has Lappy done? Has she brought in anyone in particular, any couple players, or what have they done?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's 2 new star freshman players on the defensive side, Monica Burrich and Mackenzie Ellis. Mackenzie Ellis is currently recovering from an ACL injury, but she's planning on getting back at the end of the season, and she definitely is a very, very good player.
So quickly, what's the dynamic on the team, like age-wise? We talked about the 2 freshmen. What's it up?
Yeah, so Swan is leading the pack as the star senior. She was a great player last year, as we all know. And then there's 4 juniors, 3 sophomores, and 4 freshmen. So it's the youngest team currently in the Pac-12.
Well, that's all the time we have. So for Lauren Sorge, I'm Alex Doyle. Back to you guys at the desk.
It's no question that CU basketball tends to have immense athletic talent within the walls of the Coors Event Center. As we take a look back in time, we find there has been many athletes who have made a name for themselves. For example, Chauncey Billups, Alec Burks, Corey Higgins, and of course Chris Copeland. They're all the first foursome to end up on opening day NBA rosters in the 2012-2013 season. All CU grads. However, these are not the only players who had successful careers in the National League. Coming all the way back from our own CU Boulder, the timeline stretches back to 1946, when Bob Dole of the St. Louis Bombers was the first CU graduate to be drafted. Some of you may also remember Cliff Mealy of the Houston Rockets, who was CU's first-round draft pick, but the 7th overall pick from the Houston Rockets. Though the years, CU has continued to breed major talent in hopes to keep bringing talent to the National League. It's time for this week's edition of Tweet of the Week. Usually we look at the University of Colorado sports-themed tweets, but this week we have such a good tweet, your eyes are going to fall out of your head. If you have small children watching this show, you may want to cover their eyes. For the love of God, please cover their eyes. Please. All right, here is our tweet of the week. Rapid fire is next! And now this video.
Rapid fire's next. Ichabod.
What?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, how was your weekend? Oh, have you studied for jogging? Oh, yeah.
Pay attention. It matters.
Hey everybody, I'm Tanner Bergamo and this is Rapid Fire. Tomorrow the football team is taking on the Stanford Cardinals. The Buffs look to bounce back from a tough loss to UCLA. It'll be a tough task with Stanford fired up over being excluded from the top 10 in the first college football playoff rankings. Let's hope the Buffs bring what they need to chop down this ridiculous looking tree mascot. The volleyball team is welcoming the Arizona State Sun Devils this Thursday. Both teams are coming off of losses from California teams and have a similar conference record, so this is going to be a big game for the Buffs. The men's basketball team is opening their season in South Dakota this Friday, taking on Iowa State. After a disappointing season last year, the Buffs hope to start this season on a strong note. Will the Buffs be able to pull off a win? You can see for yourself at 3 o'clock on ESPN. The Dose. And then folks, strap on your running shoes because this Friday, both the men's and women's cross country teams are trotting into Albuquerque. That's right, after both teams won the Pac-12 championship, they're competing in the NCAA Mountain Regional. Let's hope they have the endurance to move on to the NCAA championships. Well, that's all we have this week for Rapid Fire. Back to you guys at the desk.
Our athletes of the week are Caitlin Benner and Pierce Murphy. Both run cross country here at CU. Benner finished the 6K race in 19 minutes and 55 seconds, which was 2 seconds behind the Pac-12 champion Aisling Cuff from Stanford. Benner also helped the Buffs win their second Pac-12 championship since joining the team in 2011. Murphy recently placed 4th overall and led the Buffs to their 5th straight Pac-12 cross-country championship. Murphy has led the Buffs 3 different times this season and placed in the top 5 in all 3 races. Now, I know you all have been craving that juicy answer to the trivia question, and I've got it for you. In case you forgot what we asked, it was, so when was the first National Bison Day? And the answer is 2012.
2012 was a good year. Remember that whole thing about the world ending in 2012 and then it didn't happen?
Yeah, I do remember that. What a time to be alive.
Also, CU football went 1-11 that year, so it basically was the end of the world for Buff fans.
I guess that really makes you appreciate winning 4 games this year. Quite the accomplishment.
Super Bowl 50, here we come.
Nope, not eligible for that.
College football playoff?
Nope, aren't eligible for that one either.
Maybe next year.
Well, looks like that's all the time we have for the week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Erin Sullivan.
And I'm Joe Paris. Have a great weekend, America. And remember to be careful when you rush the field after Colorado beats Stanford on Saturday. Good night.